Rocky is your hero. The whole pride of your city is built around a guy who doesn't even exist. You got Joe Frazier is from there, but he's black, so you can't fucking deal with them. So you make a fucking statue for some 3-foot fucking Italian.
How do you think the city of Philadelphia has treated Joe Frazier?
Well, there's a statue of Rocky near the art museum, but nowhere in the entire city is there a statue of Joe.
I'm here at one of the most popular tourist spots in Philadelphia, a statue of a fake boxer. Now, it does seem a little odd in a city featuring some of America's most historical monuments, a few world-class museums, and maybe the most passionate sports fans around. The biggest thing people want to see when they come to this city is a movie prop from 20 years ago. But why do people love it? Why do people hate it? And how did it even get here in the first place? Let's talk about the Rocky statue.
Sending messages is kind of what statues are often for. This one says, "We love freedom." This one says, "The most notable thing about our city is a fictional character."
Stallone is just a meatball actor. Then why do we make statues to him? We don't. Okay, hold on.
Right now, Chiefs, do not touch the fucking Rocky Memorial, okay? Do not do that, all right? Definitely don't put an 87 on there, all right?
Like the Rocky stairs.
Not quite as Rocky as the fictional character.
How about we throw you down those stairs and you can see how fictional they feel?
Like the home of Betsy Ross, right?
The year is 1980. Rocky I and Rocky II have both received immense commercial and critical acclaim, solidifying Sylvester Stallone as an up-and-comer in Hollywood. Stallone is yet to make his leap into broader action stardom when sculptor Thomas Schoenberg makes a call that will change both of their lives. Stallone, an avid art collector, had previously purchased some of Schoenberg's work. The sculptor reached out with an idea to collaborate on a project to memorialize some legendary boxers. Though that initial project never came to fruition, a few weeks later Stallone called Schoenberg and flew him out to Hollywood. This time, Stallone has a specific vision in mind, a statue for the upcoming Rocky III. Rather than opting for a simple cost-effective foam prop or other movie magic, Stallone wanted something lasting. He insisted the statue be cast in solid bronze, envisioning it as more than a mere movie prop. He intended for it to be a gift to the city of Philadelphia, a gift that he didn't intend to tell them about.
Philadelphia salutes its favorite son, Rocky Balboa.
Beautiful.
Definitely a thing of beauty.
After filming Wrapped on Rocky III, the statue was brought back to LA with Stallone, but was reinstalled to coincide with the release of the movie. After that agreed-upon period was over, Stallone and company were supposed to remove the 10-foot-tall, 2-ton statue, but decided not to, hoping the relevant officials would just let the statue remain, even though that wasn't the deal. In this story, it is easy for the art museum to be cast as the villain. The stuffy highbrow society folk looking down on things like movie and pop culture, denying the people what they want and dismissing this icon of the city as common street trash. However, this museum is in its own right an icon of the city. Envisioned in 1867, a good 100 years before Rocky ever started running up its steps, it is a beautiful museum holding masterpieces of art while being one itself. And they came into work one day and had a statue parked out front that they had not ordered. It's easy to see why they would not be overjoyed at the situation. Also, it isn't even the art museum itself that made these decisions. The Rocky Steps and the land and parks around the museum are run by the Philadelphia Art Commission and the Fairmount Park Commission. However, it was the nonprofit art museum that ended up having to foot the bill for moving the statue to its new home, after both the producers of the movie and the city itself refused to pay the thousands of dollars for its removal. So, after months of hassling and finger-pointing, it was decided to move the statue outside of the Spectrum, the arena that hosted the 76ers, the Flyers, and many iconic boxing matches. There it would stay for nearly 10 years before being moved back to its original spot atop the steps for the filming of Rocky V, once again causing debate about the proper place to display Philadelphia's most famous movie prop. Again, the Art Commission called for the statue to be moved, and again, the bronze statue was relocated to South Philly. In Rocky Balboa, there's even a joke about the city taking down the statue, though there's never an in-universe reason given for its removal.
You're mad because they took down your statue? No. Not really, no.
Finally, after years of debate in 2006, a compromise of sorts was reached with the statue sitting atop a small park next to the steps and a bronze plaque of Stallone's footprints added to the top. This coincided with the build-up and release of Rocky Balboa, for a while the conclusion of the Rocky saga. Some may see it as a solution in which no one really got what they wanted, but it's the best they could do to try and placate all sides, and I doubt we will see it moved again. Stallone himself has continued to stir the pot over the years and has made it clear that he wanted the statue at the top of the stairs. When the statue needed repairs after its many moves, Stallone offered to pay for it himself, but only if it was placed back atop the steps.
God, I love Philly. Philly is the Paris of America. I was the pride of Philadelphia. Eventually, I became the champ.
If people's only real complaint about the statue and its place of prominence was that it's silly to have a statue of someone who didn't exist, I would dismiss that pretty easily. There are statues and public art celebrating much dumber things that didn't have nearly the cultural impact as Rocky. I mean, Rocky is an 8-movie, billion-dollar franchise that started from one of the best sports movies of all time. The first movie alone made $225 million and secured 10 Oscar nominations, winning 2, including Best Picture. There are only 2 other examples of movies topping the box office and winning Best Picture in the same year, Titanic and Return of the King. So along with massive historical and fantastical epics, stands a simple love story disguised as a boxing movie made on a shoestring budget by a nobody actor struggling to make ends meet. Sly at the time being basically homeless and turning down hundreds of thousands of dollars for the script for the chance to star in it is the real-life underdog story you can't help but root for. To go from basically an unknown actor to be getting a nomination for Best Screenplay and Actor is about as inspirational as it gets. And while I'd argue that the first Rocky is still the best, most of the rest of them are pretty good. For an 8-movie franchise to have mostly goods and greats is something very few franchises can say they've achieved. And it's not like people don't love to see where other movies were filmed. The Lord of the Rings is one of the most beloved franchises, and people flock to New Zealand to see replicas of the set, where iconic scenes were being filmed, and that's great, that's fantastic. But why should it be any different for Philadelphia? The relationship between the movie and the city is a special one, as most of them are set in and mostly shot in the city as well. There are many videos of people going around the city to all the different locations throughout the series. If your city had a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon mainly set in and shot in your city, you better believe you have a statue as well. However, the fact that the statue is more of a movie prop than a work of art is not the most valid criticism. The critique with the most weight is that by shining more light upon a fictional boxer, a real one can get cast further into darkness.
Rocky is an imaginary figure who never existed. I mean, Rocky never tasted his own blood. Rocky never faced Ken Norton. He never faced Ali. He never faced Larry Holmes. Joe paid real dues, and he's a guy who we can emulate because his sense of family and ordinary Joe did extraordinary things. He remained our neighbor. He remained the church member. He remained the guy from the streets. And so Philadelphia will honor itself by honoring Joe Frazier. Late, but better late than never.
I think they slapped him in his face when they decided to honor and put a statue of a fictitious character to identify with boxing and making it the hard way.
And I think that's a shame. I think Joe deserves credit. He certainly put Philadelphia on the map with the fights against Ali, brought worldwide attention to Philly.
As now is his name and reputation and everything in Philadelphia associates with him, they ought to build him a damn statue here.
And did you used to run up the steps of the...
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes I walk, you know. I was Rocky at the time. I used to work at Cross Brother for like probably 3-4 years off and on. I used to like rail a side of beef. One side of beef, man, weighs like 300, maybe 350, 400 pounds. a big Brahma, you know, and we had to rail whatever. As I'm punching, I'm reel them inside the box, you know. So I had something to punch on while I was down there.
Just like in Rocky.
Yeah, no like Rocky like me.
Smokin Joe Frazier was a real-life success story of someone from humble roots who moved to Philadelphia at a young age and immediately took to the sport of boxing. He really did work in a meat packing plant and punch frozen meat, and he really did run up the art museum steps as part of his training routine. He took home an Olympic gold while fighting with a broken thumb, became the heavyweight champion of the world, and even defeated his friend turned bitter rival Muhammad Ali in what was dubbed the fight of the century. He opened up his own gym in North Philly where he would sleep and train and was a staple of the community for many years. Later in life, Frazier fell on hard times financially. The gym in North Philly closed without much fanfare from the local or national media. It was turned into a mattress store and now sits abandoned. His name and gloves still etched into the limestone. The boxing world clamored for the city to honor one of its most iconic sports heroes, and after much time, in 2015, Smokin Joe was immortalized in bronze, standing just down the street from where Rocky's statue once stood. However, the man himself would not be around to see it. Joe Frazier had died after a battle with liver cancer in 2011. There are a few real-life fighters that Stallone borrowed from to create the character of Rocky. Joe Frazier, Rocky Marciano, and probably the most from Chuck Wepner, the little-known underdog given a shot to fight Muhammad Ali and took him 15 rounds. Like Frazier, Wepner grew to dislike Rocky using parts of his life and settled with Stallone after suing him for using his life story. And while Frazier never went as far to sue Stallone, he too would dislike how parts of his life story was stolen from him. In a different interview with The Guardian in 2008, he said he never received any credit from Stallone for the ideas of running up the stairs or punching me, saying, "He never paid me for none of my past. I only got paid for a walk-on part. Rocky is a sad story for me." And while Frazier might have ended up resenting what Rocky became, Stallone did try to honor the man in some small ways, casting him in a cameo in Rocky 1, and he even wanted Frazier to play Clubber Lang in Rocky 3. But that idea was shot down pretty quickly after Smokin Joe nearly broke Stallone's jaw in a screen test.
Philadelphia's own Smokin Joe, the beloved Mr. Joe Frazier.
How about that? Hey, Joe. Now, you been dumping me long time. No, Joe. You next, Joe. You next, Joe. You understand? You next. They must be friends.
It's easy to say that everything should be good now. Both Frazier and Rocky finally have their own statues, and fans of each have places to visit. But it's the fact that it wasn't until after Joe Frazier died, nearly broke, that he was honored in the same way a fictional character was that doesn't sit right with some people. That in the nearly 40 years since he retired from the sport of boxing, Joe Frazier faded into obscurity in the city he called home. In this documentary, When the Smoke Clears, made shortly before Frazier's death, the fighter reflects back upon his career. We hear from his friends, family, and former opponents, all of whom have the utmost respect for the man. But it ends on a somber note. Frazier, who is living in the apartment above his gym, is unable to secure the funds to keep it open. And years later, a movement had to be started to keep the building from being torn down. Unfortunately, we will never get a clear-cut answer as to why it took so long for Joe Frazier to get a statue to rival Rocky's. I'd be willing to bet that Frazier's race certainly played a part, as did his lack of nationwide fame and celebrity compared to his bitter rival Muhammad Ali. Raising funds and starting a movement is hard, whereas an actor paying for the whole thing is a whole lot easier. It's tragic that the inciting moment to gather the funds for Frazier's statue was his death, and that in the 40 years between Frazier's retirement and his passing, the city, the boxing world in general, or Stallone himself didn't raise the funds needed. Now, I'm merely a tourist in this city, and I wouldn't dare speak for any Philadelphians. But what I will say is I really enjoy this city and all that it has to offer. I get that part of the frustration with the statue could come from the outsiders thinking it's the main thing when people think of Philadelphia. But in reality, the city is so much more than just one movie or even one franchise. It's a city brimming with history and culture, with food and art and people passionate about it all. In some ways, Rocky is a love letter to Philadelphia, That doesn't mean it's all people should think of when they think of the city. There are real things to love about this city, and very real athletes to be inspired by. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Especially if you're from Philadelphia. What are your real thoughts about the Rocky statue? Is it something you actually care about, or is it more just a tourist spot like Pat's and Gino's? Let me know what you think.